What if you could change your life? What if sorrow could become joy and the darkness the light? What if you could heal not only yourself, but those around you? Well, you can. It's called alchemy. And these are the Alchemy Sisters. Join quantum karmic healer Jennie McDaniel and intuitive empowerment coach Mandee Elam for a magical journey into esoteric spiritual discussions. Brought to you by Heart Over Ego Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Alchemy Sisters. You are here with Mandee and Jennie. Hey Jennie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a little bit overcasty here, just north of Albuquerque, but it's a lovely day still, and I'm enjoying the break from that heat and sun. So it's a great day. How about you?
Awesome. I'm doing well also. I've actually been mostly inside working all day, and it's been hot and humid where I'm at in South Jersey, so I was okay staying inside. I went out and watered my garden for a while, and that was quite a bit of enough heat for me today, so that was good. And I just want to welcome all of our listeners. Thank you for tuning in to the Alchemy Sisters here on Heart Over Ego Radio. Each week we love to bring a beautiful wayshower in this world to talk a little bit about the magic that they're putting out in the world. And tonight we have an incredible guest. It's one of our friends and co-creators here on Heart Over Ego Radio. Her name is Naomi Paulson Calderon. She hosts a show called Rain Radio, and she is a magician, witch, and a badass healer, among many, many other things. So welcome, Naomi. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. It's so awesome always to be back with the two of you in concert together. So just so happy to be here and staying inside. I'm a little jealous, Jennie, that you said it's a little overcast there, because here we have hot, hot, hot.
And where are you, Naomi? Tell our listeners.
I am in Southern California. I'm right smack in the center between LA, San Diego, and Palm Springs. So I'm kind of at the front edge of where it starts getting super crazy hot.
Getting that heat. So you staying inside for the day?
Oh, absolutely. I did go outside to get a little vitamin D today and to kind of get a little grounded. It's mostly staying inside the last couple days because it's been a little warm. 107 the other day.
Ooh, yeah, that's warm.
Yeah.
That's too hot.
Even if it's a dry heat, right?
It's still too hot. Once I was just talking about this. I'm like, even though I like the dry heat, but after it gets over to like 96 or 7, it's just too hot. It doesn't matter if there's humidity or not. It's just very, very hot. Got to be 101 here the other day, and I was just talking about we have a swamp cooler here because apparently swamp coolers are a big thing where it's humid where it's dry, and it keeps the house very, very cool. So I've been able to stay very, very cool. And like I was saying on the other show, our electric bill is only $60, and we run it all the time. It keeps the whole house 70 degrees all the time.
Oh,
and
then,
of course, we use our washer and dryer and stuff too. Like we use all of our stuff here. So we were just amazed. We were just like, so pleased. We were expecting a couple $100 electric bill because that's about the size of it for a lot of houses, and we don't have a huge house. And so we were like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm enjoying staying cool cheaply, I guess.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on your temperature because at some point we're going to have to venture out your way. But just keeping an eye. What are you guys doing out there?
Sometimes it gets hot. We get some spikes, but for the most part, it stays pretty decent, I'd say.
Nice.
Oh, July, middle of eclipse season. If you're in the north, you gotta handle the heat right now, I guess, right?
Well, and you guys get the humidity out where you are, yes?
Yeah. Yep, East Coast gets a lot of humidity, which I really actually missed when I lived in Colorado. I'm a water soul, and high desert was a little hard on me. So even though it's humid and can be a little uncomfortable, I sit better in a more humid area. I tend to thrive a little more. So I can't complain too much. Naomi, will you please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your magic in this world?
Absolutely, I would love to. So it's funny you say that you're a water, I am a fire sign. So yeah, for those of you who follow astrology, I'm a double Leo with a Taurus moon. So I can be a little on the feisty side and a little stubborn, just ask my half side. I grew up in the Midwest. I am a transplant, but I think I am definitely a California girl at heart. I like going to the beach, not so much in the water. I'm more of a sit my butt on the beach kind of girl. And I have been out in California since 98, except for a 3-year walkabout. And in that time, I had been in corporate America and got laid off and got tired of being in the whole .com bust arena. And I switched industries, and I ended up in the wellness industry, and that was in about 2003. And so I have danced in and played in a number of areas in the health and wellness industry since then. And it's evolved, and here I am today with titles like magician and witch. And I did have one client call me her crazy filter because I filter out her crazy. So, yeah, I get called a lot of things.
Some of them nice, maybe some of them not so nice. We get called lots of things.
Right? Well, and luckily by my clients, I know that coming from them it's all nice. Other people maybe not so nice.
We get called names every once in a while, but it's just because we're different, and that's okay. And so, Naomi, I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. I want to get into the elements, because I know that's one of your specialties, and I don't know a whole heck of a lot about it. And like Mandee said before the show, I don't know if it's ever been touched on. Maybe have you been on before, Naomi? Have you been on this Alchemy? I thought that maybe you talked about it a little bit, but that was a couple years ago, so it kind of
I think
wasn't fresh in my mind.
The time we started Rain Radio, so it's definitely been a while.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go over the element, and then I was gonna go right into a personal question. Not too personal, but I have, at calling myself an intuitive and a psychic, I get a lot of questions, but a lot of them sit in the relationship space, and of course career space too, of course, the two things that come up the most. And I know that most of my clients are females looking to find a partner. I want you to shed some light on what it's like to be married for, you fill in the blank how many years. I don't know how many years you've been married, but I know it's been a nice amount of time, a nice chunk of time. So I was going to ask you to maybe throw some advice out there, because what happens is I find that once people, get past the whole search and finally land a twin flame, then we're like, oh my God, what do we do now? The struggle has been real to find them. And then how do you land it? And then what the hell does that look like, and what's successful and what can be helpful? So I thought maybe you could throw out some advice from a married woman who's been married for a significant amount of time.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I've been married, it'll be 8 years this fall. I don't know if that's significant or not.
I think it is.
We're past the 7-year itch, so I guess that's a good thing. My half-side's name is Bear, Gray Bear, Matahota, and we just call him Bear, though. As far as learn to talk, learn to communicate, I guess. Mm-hmm. Stop being so judgy. That's a reminder for myself, by the way. Well, and he's got a Leo married to an Aries, so
sweet Jesus.
I know. And if you're into human design at all, oh God, you should see his human design chart. Leela, my co-host, she looked at that and she goes, no wonder he's stubborn. I'm like, yeah, he's Aries, he's Apache, and yeah, his chart. So I don't know. I think of that and it's like, well, God, what if I had known all of that before I said yes? Or before I asked if he had known all of it, would he have, so... But I think a lot of it is communication, and what's been coming up for me a lot recently. There's been a lot of crap that the whole country and world has been going through with this pandemic, and what we have made it mean, and what we refuse to accept, and just all the, I'm just going to say it, all the shit around it. Okay, and I know for myself, being very much an extrovert and very much kinesthetic, this being stuck at home is what it has felt like. It's stuck at home, and I'm not stuck at home. That's what it's felt like. And so it has forced us to, in a good way, to communicate differently, because we're in a small space and we could easily be underfoot of one another all the damn time. And it's had me really looking at what wasn't working in my life, because now that, we're in 670 square feet, it's like, okay, what wasn't working? What what was I not doing? What was I doing that needs to change? And then us being willing and able to have those conversations without feeling butthurt about what the other person says. Just being able to hold that space and listen.
I love it. I think that is a huge space. Someone who's willing to reflect with you as opposed to deflect and just blame people and around everyone, every situation around them, and to really go in and look. And I think that's excellent advice. And was this your first marriage?
For me, yes. For him, it's number 3. Third's a charm, he says.
Third's a charm. Number 1's a charm for you. Number 3 is a charm for him. I don't want to hog all the time. I'll hand it back over to Mandee in case she's got some questions.
Well, I'm just enjoying this, and I'm kind of curious with all of that fire energy you have going on. What are some good, healthy ways that you know of that help you to communicate with your partner that might help our listeners too?
For me, number 1 is if I'm feeling he's so amazing, really, I have to say, because he understands my moods, and so he doesn't take my crap personally when it shows up. For me, one of the things that's important is because of all the fiery stuff that I bring, for me, it's helpful to move a lot. And so whether it's go out and go jogging first, sometimes I have to separate from whatever's annoying me. And I'm not saying from him, but just the feelings to get some separation and distance so I can have that conversation. And instead of it being, oh, well, you don't ever do this, or you never, or you always, or, all the stuff, to be able to separate from that and go, okay, what's the truth of this? What's really bugging me? And one of his favorite questions for me, for his clients, for family members, whatever, is when we're either feeling triggered or irritated, a great question is, what is it that you need that you're not getting?
Brilliant. So not only do you have a couple fire signs and old souls, but they're both healers too. I bet that is interesting in their home. I bet it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall there.
Some days. I have a hashtag that I use on Facebook because he doesn't have any social media accounts, but it's just hashtag #ShitBearSays. So,
I see it sometimes. It's hilarious.
If you ever want to laugh, go through and just find a few of those. But there are times I've told him, I'm like, dude, you need your own reality show. And his response is always, I'm not that kind of Indian. So there you go.
Oh, that's hilarious. Another one, hashtag what things Bear says. Oh, that's great. And I saw one time. It just had me cracking up. I think you were making him breakfast one morning, or maybe it was midday, whenever you guys eat it the first time. And you were like, what do you want? What do you want for breakfast? And he's like, I don't know, one of those round things. And you're like, no. You've got to give me more than that. He was like, one of those round things you put in the toaster. You're like, okay, a bagel. You're like, it could have been a tomato. It could have been a pancake.
Well, and those were all the things that were going through my head. It's like the round things. I'm like, okay, we've got plums. We've got tomatillos, but I can't imagine he wants one of those. And all these rounds, I'm thinking round like a ball. And finally he's like, for the toaster. I'm like, yeah, bagel? So, yeah, sometimes words escape him, and it's like, yeah, okay, we're going to play charades here because I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Act it out. Interpretive dance and figure out what he wants for breakfast. Right? I love it.
I can only imagine he'd probably be like, yeah, I ain't that kind of Indian either. God bless him.
Oh, I love it. That's a great question, Jennie, and a great topic to open up with. I thought that was really nice. And, relationships are not easy, and they take a lot of work and compromise and that self-inventory. You talked about your first medicine was to move, get out and move and shift your energy, and I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, it's helpful. Well, and for us, not only, when you get married, there's so much that each of you brings to the table. And you can label it good, you can label it bad, whatever, but he and I had very different upbringings. And we also, both from a family dynamic, but we also generationally, he is quite a bit older than I am. He's 18 years older than I am. Not at all what I anticipated I would end up with as far as a life partner. But so we've got generational differences, plus he's Native American, and that's very different than growing up a pasty white girl in Iowa. You know, so I think that's another piece to really look at when you are coming together with someone, is just recognizing how we relate to things, how we interpret things, how we think about things has been influenced into vastly different ways. And how can we come together and bring it together from a place of understanding instead of, yeah, I just don't get you, you're weird, you know? It's instead of being judgy about it. And sometimes I have to remember, okay, because every now and again, I'll be honest, he'll do something and that independent woman in me is just like, well, that was chauvinistic crap, you know. And it's I have to remember, part of it is just when he grew up and where he grew up.
Yeah.
Yep. Important to recognize, and that's when the empath can get a handle on, once we get a handle on not just sucking in all everybody's energy and kind of being overwhelmed, once we get a handle on our empathy, then we can like really be objective and see where someone's coming from. Again, it's very easy to be overwhelmed with what we think is right and how we were raised as it being the end-all, be-all. No. As Naomi showed, she's from Middle America, white girl, and her husband is Native and a decade and a half older than her. So there was some significant things that they had to be aware of. That emotional IQ had to be of such a number so that they could see, indeed, if the love is strong enough, we can work through these differences, but being objective and loving and sympathetic and saying, okay, we're dealing with completely different lifestyles, let alone a man and a woman, you know, so you got that kind of crazy difference in ideas going on. So wonderful that you guys have been able to really merge that and grow that. And that's why I ask those questions. I don't generally ask people about their relationships on live shows, but I see that the connection is really exquisite and very solid. And I'm like, well, what they have, I think a lot of people are looking for, that grounded, reflective, heartful connectivity space. So I'm like, oh, let's give somebody a prequel. The people who are searching for that, and they will find it if they keep looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it looks like, and can be like this. And we still get mad at each other sometimes, and it's not all perfect. And
absolutely, 100%, because we are still two-legged. You know, I don't care how much work we've done. He's a Native elder. The man comes from a line of medicine people. He's got his shit together in that respect. And it doesn't mean that we don't still sometimes have moments of, now he will tell you, nope, I haven't ever had a single moment. I'm like, oh my God, you're either lying or you're nuts, because I can be a handful. So, you know, we're two-legged. We're still imperfectly perfect.
It's beautiful.
It's super beautiful. And I like that you brought light to the generational differences. I think right now, as we're really healing a lot of things, Naomi came on our show about healing the racism wound. You know, I think in each generation, as much as I am helping and love to encourage people to alchemize and grow and expand as much as possible, I also really honor each and everything that people went through. Like, I'm like World War I and II vets, like they have a reason to be salty. Like they've had major wars or depressions or crazy things going on every decade of their life, you know, and each and every person and being went through their perspectives to learn on a sovereign, you know, on a sovereign plane, but also to assist the collective. And I see a lot of frustration rising collectively right now, and not understanding why certain generations or certain people have a really hard time changing their opinions. And I like that you brought in just like respecting differences and like bringing light to that and talking about, you know, what it means or how you're seeing it from different perspectives. I think it's brilliant.
And I do not always do that perfectly, but when I can bring myself back to that, it's amazing what can open up just in conversation and what you can learn about the other person. And I think that's true whether you're in a romantic relationship with someone or just someone that you are in, I don't know, church with, an organization, working with in a company, on a project, whatever. When we can just stop and breathe. And as much as there are moments when I do roll my eyes when I see some of these videos, you know, oh, somebody's being a Karen. Well, what would happen if we could?
Poor Karen.
I know. Anybody named Karen out there? I am so sorry, because that's
so sorry.
Right. It's just not fair. But what would happen if we step back and try to see through their eyes? What would happen? I don't know.
See through a Karen's eyes?
Or somebody that we're labeling, through a Karen's eyes, but understanding not to excuse bad behavior from people, but to simply understand what their map of reality is. It doesn't mean don't call people out. I'm all for calling people out.
But understand, too, where they're coming from so that we can learn their perception a bit, understand, because a lot of people will be like, I don't know how anyone can act like that. Well, let's take a look here. She probably was raised in a potentially racist, wealthy, upper class family, and I'm sure each person has a different story. I'm just kind of making stuff up as we go,
right.
But like,
you can use mine. I was raised in a very, well, not very, nobody in my family was KKK, but I was raised in a racist, middle class white family.
You heard it growing up.
Absolutely. And it was subtle stuff. And there were times when my mom would say, well, your dad has a reason for it. And I'm like, there is no reason for that.
That was always a hard one with me, too. There's a reason for it. I can understand how that can sit unsettling. But at the same time, there's such a challenge with a spiritual level to say, okay, well, I just need to kind of respect that.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we be okay with, and whether it's racism or something else, you know what, there is a reason that every now and again something that I label as chauvinistic comes out of my husband's mouth. And, my feminist side gets all disgruntled and it's like, make your own damn dinner for the next week, whatever it is. Versus, okay, there's a reason for this. There's a reason he has those moments because of belief systems he was brought up in. And it's my opportunity to learn how to communicate differently and say, I get that and it's not okay with me. Or I get that, but this is how it sounds to me. So am I hearing you wrong or am I hearing you right? Because it's going to be a different conversation depending on which that is, right?
Yep. And it can be even, for example, my boyfriend he's 2 years older than me. We were kind of raised by Midwesterners, so there's that kind of commonality. But he didn't see a lot of productive, worthwhile relationships in his adult life, including his relationships. And so he fell back on what his family and his parents' relationship looked like as a staple. So he was using it as a guideline, which is great if you have typical desires, like his parents had children and lived that life and was a family unit in that way. Mm-hmm. So he was very open to this, by the way. He didn't bulk, but it was something that I really had to kind of change his perspective. I'm like, okay, John, you keep dating girls that don't want to be domestic housewives like your mom was happily for, a big chunk of their childhood and, of course, took a career in the librarian later on. But I'm sure she worked part-time every once in a while. She's a good, solid person. She does a lot. But what he saw was a very defined feminine energy in the house managing food and cleaning, which I'm not interested in. Mm-hmm. So I had to be like, I'm interested in food and clean things, but I don't want to only be the only one doing it constantly, and it's just not my bag. I didn't have kids for that reason. I didn't get married till I was closer to 40 for that reason. It's very clear that I'm not into it, and I don't desire to care for other people in a domestic situation, including men. So men were cool with me that I dated in the past not wanting to have kids, but the second I didn't want to be domestic with them, they couldn't grasp it. And I'm like, no, it's across the board. I don't want pets either. And, so it was something that I had to be like, okay, your track record shows you keep dating these independent women that, one's a doctor, the other one's making $250,000 a year, growing weed. I'm like, you're clearly dating women that are dating me. I'm a career woman, businesswoman. I'm like, you're dating women that don't have that domestic edge. So you're going to have to change your ideas a little bit about what that looks like. And it took a little bit of our relationship of like hashing out domestic stuff because, again, in his mind's eye, he sees it as, I'll do the outside stuff and you do the inside stuff. I'm like, I'm a businesswoman. Let's lay this deal on the table. I'll cook breakfast and you handle the outside. Now what are you doing inside? Because we live in a desert. There's not a lot to do, So it's like, no, that's not a good trade. And I don't know why women bought into that in the past. It's because they wanted protection from their husbands so they could raise a family, which I'm not negotiating with that. I don't want that. So I come to the table with completely different negotiating demands, if you will. and so he had to wrap a new age idea around what a successful relationship looks like his family, like his mother and father, but also new agey, let's call it. I hate that word, but let's put a label on it so people can see a new age kind of relationship, no kids, both professionals, this and that. So it was interesting because he was coming up from it from the most heartful space, but we had to reconstruct, and then I had to reconstruct. Like, yeah, I can cook him dinner sometimes. I don't have to be so hardcore about not taking care of a man. I can care for a man because he's caring for me, and it took him for me to feel that fully, so I could be like, what do you want for dinner, without wanting to stab him in the eye, I'm an Aries, fire sign too.
Right. Oh, I love it. Yep.
Well, I have a bit of a controversial discussion while we're talking about all this and respecting people and all their things. So we have all of this stuff coming out with all the pedophiles, and, everything's alleged as of now. Nobody knows what's going on, but there's a lot of light being shed on this thing that's been existing for a long time. And with that light comes some of these pedophile advocates that are rebranding themselves as minor attracted persons. And this is something where I'm personally having a hard time finding kind of the neutrality in it and finding ease with that. And I was curious of both of your thoughts.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in here, and I cannot imagine myself coming at it from a place of neutrality. I'll just be honest. Minor attractive, no. Somebody who is 14, somebody who is 16, somebody who is 12 doesn't have the cognitive ability to really understand what is going on and to make those decisions. And I think that's bullshit. And sorry, there you go.
And I have a lot of thoughts around this, and I've been trying to burn a bush to get people's attention about, like, where are these kids going, and these kids are missing, and what's going on, and I know there's Satanists out there, and what the hell. So now it's coming to light with many things, the Weinstein and the Epstein, and it has been coming to light through the Catholic Church over the years, but many people don't listen. But yes, it's becoming such a big deal. It's in our government, it's in Hollywood, it's in our churches, it's in all the other places that exist beyond those places. So what we have is a disgusting disease that needs to be addressed, and it's going to take an incredible amount of support, an incredible amount of investigation, an incredible amount of research to figure out what the hell is going on. It's so disgusting that most people don't even want to talk about it, which is how it survived for this long. Because no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to bring it to light. It's too disgusting. We would rather sweep it
under the rug.
Yes. I've seen posts that will say they'll call out the drunk uncle, but the uncle that's a pedophile gets a free ride. The drunk uncle makes a scene at Christmas because, he's too drunk or whatever, so they'll yell at him and kick him out of the family or the dinner. But, the pedophile doesn't make a scene, so he gets to stay while they protect him. It's just no, we don't. We have to stop that shame associated with people having illnesses, including pedophilia. Now, people will say, well, 14-year-olds have sex. I'm like, yeah, with other 14 or 15-year-olds, if they do, if that's what they get into. I know a lot of people do have sex at a younger age, and some wait till they're older. It doesn't matter. People have sex at a young age sometimes, but they're also dealing with another human that's at their same emotional capacity, which means they're both feeling awkward, they're both feeling vulnerable, they're both feeling whatever, as opposed to one person clearly having the upper hand and manipulating the situation. That's the difference. And I've seen that some people are pushing the agenda, and I think my phone dropped out of my hand, so I lost what you were saying when you were asking the question, so I'm glad you jumped in there, Naomi. But I've seen people trying to normalize attraction to younger people as if it's a kink. And I'm like, we're missing the thing. Naomi handled that by saying you don't have the capacity at that young age to make choices like that, especially when they're coming in with an adult that's manipulating the situation. And so, no.
Because so often, at least, okay, and I'm over half a century, I'll just put it out there. Growing up, we were taught respect your elders, don't talk back, all of these things. And so if you are put in a situation where you've got somebody who is an elder to you, and at that point when you're 14, that could be 23, that could be 33, that could be 43. Elder is, it leaves a wide range of numbers.
True.
But if you are taught that and you don't talk back and they know better than you, and you don't have that emotional capacity or that cognitive ability or just the chutzpah to defend and stand up for yourself, or you don't know any better because, well, they're adults and adults know better, and that kind of BS thinking that I was brought up with anyway in my household, and it's always the turn the other cheek. No, you end up sometimes being in a situation where you don't say no, or because certainly this person wouldn't actually be out to hurt you because they're an adult and they're supposed to be protecting you, because they're a doctor, because they're a cop, because they're a priest, because they're whatever, and you've been taught to respect that. Well, guess what?
Yep. And we don't have proper sex education, so everyone has shame around their body parts. And, you know, I'm sure people have said, don't let anyone touch your body parts or whatever. Well, that's great and all, but we have to explain what that is and describe that, you know, it's not cool to touch there, and this is what to look out for. Because if we have a pedophilia problem, just like we have a school shooter problem, we have to prepare these kids. And I hate that we have these problems. And let's talk about school in a second here, too, because what the hell are they going to do? I'm glad I don't have kids. None of us on the line here talking have kids. I know a ton of my friends have kids, and I'm sure, you know, they're confused about what's going to happen. But, yeah, I feel like I'll just go right into that. I feel like, and this is kind of a prophecy space that I'll kind of go into. We talked about a little prophesizing of what the world holds ahead of us, since we got some intuitives on the line. But I feel like Donald Trump really would send our kids back into school like it's a war zone, and if we lose 10%, we lose 10%. So is that him making the call? I don't know. He's a talking head. Who's really calling the shots? I don't know. The Satanists, the cabal? I don't know. But what is scary is that we're willing to send our kids into what looks like a germ-infested petri dish. What do you guys think about that? The schooling.
School always is. Are you kidding?
That's before Corona. It was a petri dish.
Germ factories. Come on. Every year we see it. People are like, oh, it's cold and flu season. It's like, well, no, it's actually
school season.
It's school season. And kids are little germ factories. They pick them up and they carry them around, and they don't wash their hands, and they wipe their snot on their sleeve. I have such a beautiful picture of kids, don't I? You know, they're little germ factories, and then we send them to these little classrooms where we shove like 30 of them into a space that's really designed for maybe 15, and you know, they're on top of each other, and they're sharing pencils, and they're, you know, ooh, what's on your tray at lunch, and you know, they're doing what kids do.
Yep.
So
naturally, they just naturally put their hands in their mouth, get close to their friends. I mean, we've all been there.
I own plants, people. I own plants. But I don't buy into, you know, cold and flu season. However, I do buy into what the body does and doesn't do during certain times of the year. Now, I think this year it's going to be, you know, we have kind of got this petri dish going on.
We do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, I have a lot of teachers on my client list, and I'm not going to say any names, but I'm going to share with you what I saw in their tarot card readings. Because normally I don't use tarot because I'm more intuitive and precise with my channeling. Mm-hmm. But since Corona's hit, it's just chaos. So I have been using my cards a lot more, and they've been a lot more accurate than normal. So I'm just using them as a tool, and it's helpful to see through. But I did there were a couple readings on a couple teachers just last week, and I was like, are they going to have you come back to school and then pull you back out? And they're like, basically, they're going to have us, probably not all the kids at once. This is this school. This is near, I think, in the greater Nashville area. he said, yes, we'll probably have to bring them in phases, so not 30 kids at once. Like Naomi said, for a building or a room designed for 15 kids, we're going to bring them back in phases, hand them their books, greet them, and probably send them home to do their schooling. Now, I'm sure some of them don't have a home where a parent is, because this is where we get into problems, and I'm glad all this is coming to light, because I don't like the stress that Corona's brought, but I do like the pieces that need fixing that are being brought to light. What we're seeing is that teachers are daycare providers. End of story. Yes, they teach your kid. Yes, they watch your kid. Yes, they manage your kid. Yes, they parent your kid. Yes, they hold space energetically, emotionally, and spiritually with your kid. But at the end of the day, we don't have a workforce if we don't have school. Because if we don't have anyone, the workforce are of childbearing age. That's generally not all of the workforce, but a large majority of the workforce happens to lie in alignment with when women have babies. So now we have a large part of the workforce having children with no one to watch them, and then now you have a house that needs 2 incomes that only can have 1. Mm-hmm. We're going to have an incredible economy collapse. We are going to basically bear down to the bones, which I love, and then build it back up, which is going to be hard work and take a couple decades or more. But I do see it being important that we look at where we've put ourselves with this capitalistic society, which is burnt out, pushed to the edge. No one can even take a week off work without losing a meal or something because they're tight on money. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is spun its way out. It's gotten top heavy, and it's falling over. And the coronavirus was the bowling ball.
That's just it. Well, and I think I look at it as my friend's friend wrote a song called The Cosmic 2x4. And cool. It's so appropriate, and you know, the universe, we have all seen it in our own lives in some way, shape, or form. Hey, you need to do this. It's like, la, 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 I'm not listening to you, and we don't do it. And then the universe says, no, I'm not kidding, and then it taps you on the shoulder. And you're like, no, I'm still not listening to you. I'm not doing whatever it is that you said. And then finally it's like, if you ever watch NCIS and you watch Gibbs smack the nose up alongside the back of the head, that's what happens. And we call that the cosmic 2x4. For me, it's usually been in jobs. I've gotten this nudge. You're supposed to leave this job. And it's like, oh, but I'm very comfortable. I don't like my job, but I'm very comfortable because I at least get a paycheck and I know what to expect. No, you really need to leave this job. No, I'm going to keep going. No, now you're going to have some stress at work. Yeah, but no, I don't want to leave my job. No, you really need to leave your job. No, guess what? You're laid off. You know, because instead of going, all right, so what's available to me, what's possible, what's next, I wait until absolute hell breaks loose. And that's what we have done, I think, not only as a culture, but definitely in our society here, but I also think globally. When I look at the pandemic solely from if I step back and try to put the filter on it of what needs to be healed, and you bring up some beautiful points of, yes, I think that the busyness has gotten to be too much. The pressure we put on ourselves, the pressure we put on our children, the pressure we put on our society and people to be bigger, to be better, to keep up with the Joneses, all of that has exploded to the point of ridiculousness. And if I look at the virus from the point of how it interacts with the body, 2 of the areas that are being impacted are the liver and the lungs. Yes, and what are we? We are angry and we are grieving. And we aren't giving ourselves the space to do that. And so the universe just went, really? Here you go, motherfuckers, have a virus.
Exactly.
That's my belief anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a few different things going on with it. And Jennie knows, I hold space with all the groups. I want to all the different perspectives are, and I hold oh, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I was saying I like to really look at all the different perspectives as to what's going on with all of this right now. And I hold space with all the groups, and all I can ever do is tune into my own intuition. But just like Naomi was saying, like, this very much is an opportunity to heal collectively. And we have been running ourselves into the ground with this current system, which I also think was designed to do that to us. And it's going to take us as a people to say, hey, this system does not work for us, and we're not complying with it anymore. And there is a lot of grief and a lot of anger. And I'm hoping, here on our little network and just in the individuals I see, that taking this bit of a step back, though it is creating a lot of worry and financial stress, and we're missing out socially quite a bit, I'm hoping it's giving people the opportunity to boost up their immune systems, to look at what's not serving them. There's been a lot of positivity in the fact that people are like, you know what, homeschooling's not so bad, or, I can look at things a little differently now, or actually I can work from home and it works out a lot better for me. And companies are seeing, hey, maybe if we do have more employees from home, we can have less of a carbon impact. So there is a lot of positives coming out of this, but when it comes down to it, it's each individual's responsibility how they react to this situation.
100%.
Ladies, we're going to cut to a commercial, and when we come back, we're going to talk 4 elements and some color of the rainbow, food therapy, nutrition, energy. So we'll be back, everyone.
You are listening to Heart Over Ego Radio, a network of shows offering healing and guidance for your beautiful journey. Tune in on Mondays for the Alchemy Sisters, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern. Tuesdays, tune in and tune up. Body awareness and self-care, 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Wednesdays, One for All is Love, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Thursdays, Unbound with Cynthia Martin, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. Fridays, The Witching Hour with Greenwich Village and the Alchemy Sisters, 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And on Fridays, Rain Radio, 10 Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Saturdays, Creating Heaven on Earth, 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And Sundays, Everyday Psychic Radio at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. This is the Heart Over Ego Radio Network.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Alchemy Sisters, and you're here with Jennie, Mandee, and Naomi. And right before the break, we said we're going to come back and hand the mic to Naomi and see if she wants to talk a little bit about the elements.
Always love to do that. So it's so interesting. I sent a little message to Leela earlier, and I was like, oh, my God, did you see the link for the show? They used healer in the link. It's so funny because this is the first year that I've really used the H word in relationship to myself. It's like, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm all those things, but healer? No, that's my husband. That's my half side. That's not me. So it's interesting, but the more I have divin is not a word. That one I know.
It is now. I like it.
Divin. I am diving into that. So into this space, I'm understanding, and especially being associated with you lovely women, you've even used the P word with me. You called me a psychic. I'm like, I'm a what now?
Now what am I? Now what the hell are you labeling me as?
Right. God, I've been called all sorts of, add that one to it, But looking at this, when I really stop and think of what is healing about, simply to me, it's about understanding, like you were saying before the break, people starting to understand their bodies at a whole new level and understanding what it is they need physically, mentally, emotionally. And I think that we have this beautiful opportunity to do more of that. And to me, that's a big part of why I'm here and why I do what I do. For me, I bring in the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. I am a student of the 5 elements. I nerd out like there is no tomorrow when it comes to that. I like the puzzle pieces that, to me, that brings together. So the 5 elements of Chinese medicine is based on this framework that nutrition and emotion and our environment, or the elements, play a role together to create health. And when any of those are out of balance, there's an imbalance in the body. And so for me, I really like looking at what's going on for people. As I was saying, with the whole virus issue, you've got liver issues, you've got lung issues, because those things, viruses typically, there's a liver element. Well, the liver is the organ of anger. That's the emotion piece that comes into play. The lungs are all about grief and sadness and not being able to take in that full breath of life. So it's about looking at where we're at, both what's going on in the body, but then also looking at how can we live more seasonally and living in tune with the elements.
I love it. You know, does this kind of go hand in hand a little bit how the Ayurvedics say you should eat seasonally, like eat things that are in season? Now, of course, you can't be a perfect individual and have only things that are in season, surely, because we have things at our fingertips and we might have recipes we want to try. But point being, trying to eat what's in season is one of the ways you can kind of work with the elements and stay in rhythm with the earth.
It's very similar. There are a lot of similarities between Ayurveda and 5 elements. And when I talk about eating seasonally, some of it is, let's look at what grows at that time of year. A good example of that is what in Chinese medicine we call late summer. That is the time of harvest. That's the time when you start seeing things like acorn squash and butternut squash and pumpkins showing up. And the element that governs late summer is earth. And so it's all about getting grounded. Well, when you eat foods that grow below the ground level, like turnips and rutabagas and things like that, you do get more grounded naturally. That's the nature of the energetics of the food. And so there is some of that. And then it's also the stomach and spleen are part of, those are the organs that are part of that late summer. And if you talk to somebody, for instance, who's always anxious and worries a lot, oftentimes it's because they're not grounded. So we look to what are those grounding foods. Sometimes they are foods that grow in that season, quite often. Sometimes in Chinese medicine, they aren't necessarily foods that grow in that season, but they are foods that are in that color family. Late summer is going to be kind of the oranges and the yellows.
Interesting. And this lines up with how I feel about color therapy with chakras. Like if someone's really working on their, I don't know, let's say heart chakra, we'll eat a lot of greens. The color associated with the heart. Surely you want to eat different kinds of vegetables while you're doing this, but maybe some extra greens, wear green shirts, maybe dye your hair green. I don't know. Green. Think green. Imagine green. That's I love that. I love lining up the colors with the seasons, with the healing, with the rhythm of the earth. It makes sense to me. And if I didn't have ADD, I would probably study these to an incredible depth. But because of the way I do my work and how I am as a person, I kind of skim off the top of all of them. Because to dive in, like Naomi will probably tell you, she's probably been studying this for years. It takes an incredible amount of time to get into it and dissect it, just like if someone wants to take in astrology or Ayurveda or Chinese medicine. These are incredible, depthful studies that people will often do lifetime over lifetime. So I would like to be an acupuncturist, but because I don't want to go to school for 4 years, and that's just not available for me right now, I got a book on acupressure, and I was able to find the meridians, find some of the spots, and that was a $10 experience. So it's interesting. You could have an interest with something and not have to go full all in all the time. You can get some books and brush up on it and get an idea.
Absolutely. Well, that's for me where a lot of this came from is when I went to school study to become a holistic health and nutrition coach, we studied 100 different dietary theories, and Chinese medicine really stuck out and just really piqued my interest. And I had seen an acupuncturist for years prior to that, and I would constantly ask her questions. And so when I started school, what I knew fit in maybe a thimble. And I still feel like what I know maybe fits in a shot glass because there's so much to learn. And unfortunately, studying traditionally is not going to happen because I'm not going over to Japan or to China to study. But even here in the States, studying more traditionally, I would need to go to school to become an acupuncturist, and I don't have a desire to do that. Mm-hmm. But I will continue studying on my own because there's so much brilliance to this, and it's really, for me, that has helped me. My belief, and part of this is the timeline therapy background as well, my belief is when we shove emotion, eventually it will manifest in the body as dis-ease, whether it's a chronic condition, whether it's a disease itself with a specific disease name. Could just be I have an issue with my right knee and I can't seem to get beyond it, whatever that is. And so for me, looking at this and being able to use this as a tool to help people understand their bodies better so that they can create better health, that's my goal with it. And that and working with entrepreneurs to really work with the seasons instead of against them, because in our culture we don't really pay attention to the seasons. We just
really
go
don't
all the
honor
time.
them anymore. Yeah.
No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Or here in the fashion industry, there's like 54 seasons. Every week is a season.
Right.
Which shows, how far out of balance we got with that, And I just love all the things you're talking about. My favorite definition of a healer is someone who triggers within you the ability to heal yourself, And it sounds like with all of your experience and knowledge, I'm sure you do that quite often, sister.
With that definition, I will own it.
I love it. So, ladies, maybe we could use the last few minutes here. I want to hand the mic to Naomi so she can tell everyone how they can get a hold of her at least one more time, and we can even do it at the end here too. So, Naomi, do you want to tell everyone how they can get a hold of you in case they want a session, talk about the seasons with you?
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to talk about the seasons, absolutely. If you've got things going on that you're like, I've not been able to move beyond X, Y, or Z, whatever that is for you, whether it's physical or emotional, definitely hit me up. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/sunflowersage. You can find me online at naomicalderon.com on my website, or you can simply follow me here at Heart Over Ego Radio on Rain Radio every Friday.
Excellent. And let's talk about nutrition. I know that before the show we were kind of just talking about just in general how nutrition and whole foods and finding out what your body needs and wants is going to be important, but just getting it into your body and keeping yourselves nice and healthy so that we can protect ourselves from a variety of things. Like you'll hear cancer is present in the body, but if there's an immune deficiency or some such, I'm sure there's a lot more detail to it than that, but then that lets the cancer in and then you can be exposed to it and it could grow in your body. So we're talking about cellular health from a nutritional angle, and I think it's going to be wildly important. Not only has it always been important, but we seem to be depleting our earth and our food isn't as nutritious as it's always been. So that's why I always like to talk about supplements too. So we'll talk about what do you ladies like to eat to feel super healthy? I'm surely we all eat French fries sometimes, right? But, for the most part, what are some of your ideas, Naomi, of a good repertoire for food and to get good solid foods in you and healthy foods, nutrition?
Well, I think that solid foods is that's a great place to start. Whole foods, mostly plants. It's a great place to start. I'm not a huge fan of cutting out any particular food group unless your body cannot tolerate it. Like for me, I can't eat mangoes. It makes me so sad, but they make my lips blister. So I don't eat mangoes, People with seafood allergies, that kind of thing. If you've got a full-on allergy, man, don't eat it. It's not worth it. Benadryl don't help.
How many times did you eat mangoes before you decided, okay, I'm really allergic?
Oh, it took me 3 years to figure out that's what was doing it. Because
to figure out what it was doing, because it was hard to pair it out. Yeah,
it was. We thought it was certain tints of lipstick colors with too much pink in them. And it took me 3 years to figure it out because it didn't do it every single time.
Interesting.
And
Tricky.
It was actually a friend of mine who was a professional flautist, and when she played Carnegie Hall, she was like, oh, yeah, it's the mango. And I'm like, what do you mean it's the mango? She goes, yeah, I used to play with this, with a trumpet player who had the same thing. It's a distant cousin to poison oak. And I'm like, get out.
No, really?
Up. So, yeah, it's the oil in the skin. So I probably haven't had a mango in like 3 years, because for a while I'd be like, well, as long as I wear gloves when I cut it and I rinse it really well and I only eat a couple pieces and I don't do it more than 1 or 2 days in a row to do that. And it's just every now and again it would still hit me, and it's like, okay, it's just not worth it to risk it.
Yeah, mine is white anything, white rice, white bread, potatoes even, just anything like that. Bad, it's for me a bad carb. Now, I can eat a sweet potato all day. I can eat sweet potatoes all day long. I can have some brown rice. I can't have too much of brown rice, but I can have it. And I can have some quinoas and, stuff like this. But it's just those white things that my digestive system, and believe me, and that's why I was laughing, because I'm like, it took me years to figure that out, and I've known it for years. It's just I have a slight addiction to carbs. So I had to work with the psychological side of it so I could drop what my body wasn't tolerating, which it was a whole dark night of the soul thing, like it was just really incredible. It's amazing how addicted we can become to sugars, and then of course carbs that ultimately, depending on the carb, will break down to sugar in your system. So I'm like, oh man, getting off sugar, I was like, I was going through an exorcism.
It's torture, it feels like. Well, and I think that's such a huge, that could probably be a show in and of itself, just that, because there is both the physical side that we have to cut the addiction, but there's also the emotional side. So it's anytime somebody's trying to stop, especially with sugar, is such a huge and complex piece. We have to tackle the emotional side as well as the physical. But it is it's an and conversation. It's not an either or. If you tackle only the emotional and you don't address the physiological piece, that's an issue. If you address the physiological and you don't deal with the emotional aspect, then there's going to be a missing, and chances are that relapses will happen.
Yep.
Yay,
we
sugar.
We truly are holistic, huh?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I lived in Boulder, Colorado for a couple of years, and we're getting close to the end of the show, so I'll say it quickly so we can say our goodbyes. But when I lived in Boulder, I met a lot of trainers. It's a very athletic city. There's a lot of action, movement-oriented, wonderfully healthy city, by the way, probably one of the top 4, maybe even 2. But either way, I knew a lot of trainers, just simply because the city needed a lot of trainers with a lot of athletes. And so I was always curious as to which ones leaned spiritual too, and they tended to be a little more popular in Boulder. So the bow-hunky guys who didn't really, go to the emotional side, that was fine. They worked with the guys who didn't want to manage that in their life at that moment. But then, also adding the element to spirituality to the training element, I thought was brilliant. And again, we need all kinds, but it is important for each client or patient, however you want to call it, to find the right trainer, hairstylist, massage therapist, whatever you get, whatever you desire in your life, whatever you need, to find the right one, because you will find someone that resonates with you. Because if you have an emotional attachment to food, going to the bow hunt trainer who's 22-year-old isn't going to understand that, and that's okay. He can be that. He's got to start somewhere too, but to realize that you need a certain thing. And I just don't think that we think about the addiction of food and the emotional attachment. We just think that we're sad sometimes, or we like to eat when we're sad, or whatever, So I really think that working those two together, and I find that Mandee is good friends with Holly, is what's her name? Holly Joy. Mandee.
Holly Joy McCabe, spiritual fit chick. Check her out.
Yep, she brings in that element of nutrition as well as emotional healing as well as the physical, and I think that is really where most people need to be. Again, not all of us, but most of us. So it's been a pleasure, Naomi. It always goes so fast when we get chit-chatting, and I always just love our conversations, and you'll have to come back and visit us on season 4 and tell us what you're getting into. But it's always a pleasure, and Mandee, as usual, it's always a pleasure. And everyone, this is the Alchemy Sisters. We are here most Mondays at 4 p.m. Pacific, and that's 7 Eastern. And you can go to any major podcast app and search Heart Over Ego Radio. You're going to find a whole slew of shows, including Naomi's Rain Radio. We always have new shows being added, so check us out, follow, share with your friends, and check us out. We appreciate you. We also have a sister station called Third Eye Political Radio. If you like the way we break down spirituality, you're going to really love the way we break down political topics, so to speak. So we appreciate you all, and until next time, you have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.